Well, new transgender rules from the Biden administration are at the heart of several state lawsuits. The changes would allow biological males to use girls' locker rooms and force some insurance companies to pay for transgender procedures. CBN's Lorie has a story.
The major development causing this uproar came when the administration redefined sex in Title IX to include gender identity or an individual's sense of their gender. Congress established Title IX in 1972, providing females the same opportunities as their male counterparts in sports and other school activities up through college. Now, critics charge these changes will harm the very people the historic legislation intended to protect.
This is a fundamental upending of what we've known for equality within the concept of federally funded education for the past 52 years.
The new rules, scheduled to take effect August 1st, would allow males identifying as female entry into female bathrooms, locker rooms, and more.
Even on overnight school trips. For example, we've got a situation in Colorado where a school district there was telling a young girl that she would have to share a bed with a male on a school trip.
While the Biden administration intends to rule later on athletics, experts expect more of the same.
And we know when those policies go into effect, the harm that has on female athletes.
Alliance Defending Freedom is suing the Biden administration on behalf of the Rapides Parish, Louisiana school district.
And we anticipate filing more lawsuits in other parts of the country on behalf of student athletes and others that are harmed by this unlawful redefinition of sex by the Biden administration.
Similar lawsuits have already been filed in Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Montana, South Carolina, and Idaho. The Biden administration also addressed transgenderism within healthcare, specifically federally funded insurance programs like the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. The provision outlawing discrimination based on sex now includes gender identity.
If they want sex changes, if they want, these procedures, puberty blockers for kids, all sorts of things.
It could also possibly conflict with conscience objections.
So where doctors who don't think, for religious reasons, perhaps, that this is a good idea, or even for medical reasons that, maybe it's a bad idea to transition kids, they could be at risk too.
It remains to be seen whether the courts or possibly Congress step in to block the new rules. Lorie Johnson, CBN News.
All right. Thank you, Lorie. Gordon, back over to you.
This is such a disturbing trend, and you trace it back, and it's actually on the doorstep of the Supreme Court. Here's the case they decided. An employee of a funeral home decided that he wanted to start a transition. So here he is, a very tall male with a full beard, and he starts showing up to work in a dress. So as families are grieving, as they're conducting funeral services, there he is in the midst of them in his full beard and a dress. And so the funeral home said, we can't have this. This is hurting our business, and so we're letting you go. And the Supreme Court surprisingly ruled in his favor and said, well, Congress, way back in the early 70s, put sex in as a protected thing. And so if you're in a transition, you're now in some kind of protected class. Well, when you start expanding that into Title IX, and what is that going to do to high schools? What's that going to do to junior high schools? What's that going to do to colleges? Well, it turns everything upside down. And it's absolutely crazy to have this kind of policy. We're going to show you in just a minute that there may be foreign sources for that. We've already seen agitators on our college campuses. Is there foreign money going into this whole transgender movement, and is it trying to divide us and divide us on some very core issues that all of us say, no, you can't do this kind of thing? If this takes hold of Title IX, it's absolutely, it upends the whole idea of having women's sports be protected. And if you allow men to compete in women's sports, it's completely unfair. So this is something as a country we've got to come to grips with and say, no, not our watch, you don't get to do this. And especially if you're a foreign government, you don't get to influence our core beliefs and our freedom of conscience.